Audiobook Academy. Book Summary. Persuasion. By Jane Austen. Jane Austen's final work, Persuasion, was published in 1817. It's a love story geared toward the over 50 crowd. And Elliot is a 27-year-old spinster in this era, which makes her eligible for marriage. 8 years ago was her last romantic experience. Because he was not wealthy enough for the daughter of a baron, she was convinced to cancel the engagement. As it stands, the baron is nearly broke, and the young guy is a naval officer. There are many other women in the running for the affections of Captain Frederick Wentworth, but Anne does not make the cut. Anne's appearance has deteriorated as a result of her long-term neglect, and he is now more attractive. A self-centered, selfish, and wasteful spendthrift father has drained the family's savings, and they must rent a vast estate near Bath and live in Kellynch Hall to save money. Captain Wentworth's family members are renting the property. So now he's back in Anne's life, as she won't be joining her family in Bath for a time, but rather staying to help her younger sister Mary with her 2 small, rambunctious sons. She is forced to deal with Captain Wentworth's courting of the girls in their group while she is there. After a trip to the beach, the captain rediscovers his feelings for Anne, but it's too late, she's already gone on to Bath. A different man is courting her when he meets up with his family, who are also in Bath, and he notices. After a few bumps in the road, they rekindle their romance and begin a new life together. In Persuasion, Sir Walter Elliot is introduced as a shallow, self-absorbed character. A book detailing Sir Elliot's ancestry, the baronetage, was one of Sir Elliot's favorite pastimes. He had a particular fondness for reading his own name, Kellynch Hall's Elliot. When Walter Elliot, a native of Gloucester, married Elizabeth, daughter of James Stevenson, Esquire. On July 15, 1784, they had a daughter, Elizabeth, born on June 1, 1785, she died in 1800. Born in 1787, Anne, a stillborn son in 1789, November 5, 1789, and a daughter, in 1791, November 20, 1791, Mary. By the time Mary was born, he had written in his own hand that he married Charles Musgrove, the son and heir of Charles Musgrove, Esquire of Uppercross, Somerset. The date of his wife's death was also included. Sir Walter had made the decision not to remarry after the death of his first wife. The sake of his girls is his response when asked why he won't remarry. He doesn't have to, because his eldest daughter Elizabeth serves as hostess, and his middle daughter Anne takes care of the rest of the arrangements. It's only in his spare time that Sir Walter has any responsibilities. He spends a lot of time working on his physical well-being. Attempting to appear younger, Sir Walter wears the most up-to-date clothing, applies the best creams, and does whatever else is popular at the moment. He keeps numerous mirrors around the house because he enjoys staring in them. With no children, Sir Walter Elliot's nephew, William Elliot, must inherit the throne and money. He could have married Elizabeth, as they had hoped, but he opted to marry for money, rather than for love. Sir Walter's mismanagement of his land has resulted in a decrease of cash after years of him living the life of a wealthy baron without the benefit of his wife's insight. When the novel begins, Sir Walter and his daughters find themselves in this dilemma. A longtime family friend, Lady Russell, has been attempting to help him for some time. Due to her close relationship with her late husband's wife, Lady Russell has a special affection for their daughters, particularly Anne. However, Sir Walter's favorite daughter is Elizabeth. When it comes to vanity and self-importance, she's just like him. Anne was the one who tried to keep the family's finances in order, but her father and sister refused to give up any of their luxuries. In the end, a longtime family friend, consultant and lawyer recommends that they rent Kellynch Hall for a more affordable stay. As long as they can locate a good tenant and live in Bath, Sir Walter agrees. Despite Anne's aversion to the city of Bath, she agrees. It's Lady Russell's goal to separate Elizabeth from the widowed daughter of Mr. Shepherd, Mrs. Clay, by introducing her to Lady Russell. It appears that Mrs. Clay has developed a romantic interest in Sir Walter while also showing Elizabeth some affection. Lady Russell has a sneaking suspicion that Mrs. Clay has aspirations to succeed Lady Elliot. In spite of the fact that some people have questioned over the years as to when Lady Russell and Sir Walter might wed, the two of them have never had an intention. Lady Russell, a wealthy and clever woman, is generally accepted by society to avoid marriage. Sir Walter, on the other hand, was widely expected to find a new wife. As a result, he's being sought after by numerous females. Mrs. Clay is now the huntress. After a lengthy discussion, a new tenant has been found. Commodore Croft and his wife. No children have been born to the Shepherds, and Mr. Shepherd believes a lady will help him maintain the properties. It's also worth noting that her brother is a curate in a neighboring parish, so they have a strong support system in the immediate area. He wants to make sure he is not renting his house to an unsightly person first. When he is satisfied that the Admiral hasn't been battered by the weather, he agrees to participate. However, as Mrs. Clay points out, landowners like Sir Walter are the only ones who have true good looks. To Sir Walter, Admiral Croft renting his mansion is also an attractive option. A patriotic and distinguished tone is conveyed by this choice of words. It goes without saying that giving the Admiral the privilege of renting from Sir Walter will make him happy. Elizabeth is eager to move to Bath and take part in the city's numerous festivities. Anne, on the other hand, is fixated on Frederick Wentworth, the brother of Mrs. Croft. Captain Wentworth, a young sailor, fell in love with Anne a little over 7 years ago, while she was still young and beautiful. When he proposed, Lady Russell encouraged Anne to reject him because he had little fortune and his future was uncertain. She heeded Lady Russell's advice because Anne was only 19 and lacked a mother. He was devastated by this, and he decided to join the Navy. As his career progressed, Anne kept an eye on it. He was a wealthy man, and Anne feels certain he has forgotten about her. Kellynch Hall is still a place in her heart, and she dreams about him and his sister exploring the grounds. If Captain Wentworth visits his sister, Anne wonders. As the relocation nears, Lady Russell argues that Anne should stay in Bath with her father and sister. Lady Russell plans to visit the area after the holiday season and is happy to accompany her. Even though Lady Russell will be away from Kellynch for a few weeks, this has been agreed upon. Mary, their youngest sister, will be taking care of Anne during this period. Anne is happy to help Mary, who is unwell and in need of her assistance. Because she knows nobody will want her in Bath if she doesn't stay with Elizabeth, Mary pleads with her, "I can't possibly cope without Anne." Elizabeth, on the other hand, wants Mrs. Clay to accompany her to Bath, to the amazement of everyone. Having spent time fretting over Mrs. Clay's machinations, Anne resolves to speak with Elizabeth. According to Elizabeth, Sir Walter's wife, Mrs. Clay, is well conscious of her social position and would never try to match her husband. That's why Sir Walter would not want to get married to Mrs. Clay, because she isn't very attractive. With this, Anne may at least feel like she tried, and perhaps Elizabeth will keep an eye out for Mrs. Clay's next move. At Mary's Uppercross cottage, Anne is met by a surly older sister. Mary feels isolated. Mary has always been regarded as the less talented of her sisters. She's also a bit of a jerk. Her husband and children have little respect for her. Her in-law's lack of politeness annoys her, too. Because her mother-in-law was extremely apt to not give Mary the priority she was due when they dined at the great house with other families, Mary could not see any reason why she was to be considered so much at home as to forfeit her place, as Mary notes frequently. Since Mary heard that Anne had been invited to the Musgroves' dinner party, she's been eager to join in the festivities at the great house. Huge and affluent, the Musgroves are a large clan. Even though Mrs. Musgrove is obese and has difficulty walking, the others don't seem to mind. Because their chats are light and interesting, Anne feels at ease among them. Compared to her father and sister, who are self-centered and spend their time making snarky remarks about other people, they are a lot more approachable. Henrietta and Louisa, the two oldest girls, are particularly interesting to Anne. The girls are a lot of fun and love to dance. The Musgroves are a well-liked family, and many of their evenings are filled with visitors from the neighborhood. It's always a joy to have Anne around since she provides live pianoforte accompaniment, which allows them to have a good time dancing. They all consider Anne a spinster because she is single at the age of 27 and prefers to play rather than dance. Anne's presence at Uppercross Cottage is appreciated by the Musgroves as well, since it helps to alleviate Mary's acrimonious demeanor. When it comes to their son's behavior, Mary is unable to govern her sons, whilst Anne is able to do so. Her husband and the oldest Musgrove sibling, Charles, is often off hunting with his friends, so Mary has that to complain about as well. Charles is a laid-back young man who appears to have a good relationship with his wife. Though it would be nice if she had Anne's grace under pressure. When the disagreement gets heated, they all end up arguing with Anne in it, which isn't a good thing. You want her to help Mary be a better mother, or you want Mrs. Musgrove to stop giving the boys so much candy, or whatever it is you want her to do for Mary. The Crofts will finally move into Kellynch Hall on this day. Mary, on the other hand, has a predisposition to see them as inferior. Mary, on the other hand, is very happy with them when they finally meet. Admiral and Mrs. Croft's faces are weathered because they've spent their entire lives at sea, yet they're rich and friendly. Mrs. Croft's brother is brought up over the course of the conversation, and she quickly explains that her oldest brother is the one who is married, and not the Captain Wentworth for whom Anne had formerly harbored romantic feelings. Then she announces that her brother, Frederick, or Captain Wentworth, will be arriving soon. On the night Charles Musgrove and his family went to visit Captain Wentworth at his parents' house, one of the children fell out of a tree and was hurt. For a while, it appears like Mary will be stuck at home with him, but she is so resentful of her husband for meeting the captain without her that she complains non-stop. If Anne stays with the injured boy, then they can both go together. Mary is overjoyed because she hates to miss a party, and Anne is overjoyed because she doesn't want to meet Captain Wentworth again. Captain Wentworth is a hero to the couple when they return. Charming manners, they both thought. They agreed to meet the following morning at Charles' great house instead of at Charles' house, despite Charles' invitation to join him for breakfast the following morning. Even though he made it appear that his absence the following morning was due to the child, and thought that he was also delaying seeing her again because of the child's crying. He did inquire about her, but in a casual way. A few hours after that, Charles and the captain make a brief stop at the cottage so Charles may get his hunting dogs back. Mary and Anne have barely finished their breakfast when the two men arrive at the cottage. When he sees Anne, Captain Wentworth only gives her a tiny nod. Following a long time, Anne wonders what he thinks of her after this first meeting. Mary is quick to inform her about it. When it comes to you, Anne, Captain Wentworth is not particularly gallant, despite how much he cared for me. In response to Henrietta's question, he answered, "You were so changed that he should not have known you again." Because of this, Anne believes that the years that have stolen her of her youth have made him even more attractive. Although Anne is aware that he didn't intend for her to hear what he said, he still hasn't forgiven her for the way Lady Russell convinced her to call off their engagement and break his heart. For the moment, he's looking to settle down with any woman between the ages of 15 and 30, but not Anne. Socially, Anne and Captain Wentworth are frequently found together. Mrs. Musgrove asks Captain Wentworth about her youngest son one night while they are both guests at the great house for supper. After a brief stint aboard his ship, Dick was killed in combat while serving on another ship. Mrs. Musgrove claims that her son was a good correspondent while on the captain's ship. It was more common for a child to be labeled troublesome or unmanageable on land before being transported to sea. When he was finally able to disembark, Anne believes that Captain Wentworth felt relieved. Anne plays the pianoforte again at the end of the night's festivities. When Captain Wentworth danced with Henrietta and Louisa, he enchanted the girls. He asked his partner if Miss Elliot had ever danced with him. To put it another way, it was a no. According to the girl, Anne had given up dancing and was now only playing the music. As a relative of the Musgrove family, Charles Hayter is interested in Henrietta. To avoid conflict with Captain Wentworth, who has acquired the amorous attention of every lady in town, including Henrietta upon his return from an excursion, Henrietta and Louisa visit Anne and Mary on their way out for a walk one day. Even if they can get Anne on board, Mary will be furious that they didn't ask her first. Mary is asked, despite the fact that the girls believe it will take her too long. When Mary agrees, and joins her, there is no doubt in her mind that if Mary ever needs a ride back, she is ready. Charles and Captain Wentworth greet the girls before they have a chance to travel too far. Everyone gets out of the car and begins a long trek. They notice that they are close to the Hayter house as they continue their journey. She has been missing Charles Hayter's attention, so she asks her brother to come in for a brief visit. Mary doesn't want to go see the Hayters since she believes they're impolite. While the visit is going on, she and Anne decide to relax on the side of the road. It's decided that Captain Wentworth and Louisa will wait with them. In an attempt to spend more time with each other, they stray from Mary and Anne. For a while now, Anne has had to watch as their relationship blossomed and as he flirted with other girls and they both flirted back, all the while being chilly to her. Many people are speculating as to who he will ask to marry him, but Anne suspects that he isn't interested in any of them. She has a distinct picture in her mind of what he looks like when he's excited. The fact that Anne is waiting some distance away from her sister puts her in close proximity to Captain Wentworth and Louisa. Her ears pick up on Louisa's talk with Wentworth, in which she reveals Anne's past. It was Charles, her brother, who originally proposed to Anne, but she rejected him, so he married Mary. Charles and Henrietta bring Mr. Hayter with them when they return. Henrietta is clearly in Mr. Hayter's sights, while Louisa has Captain Wentworth's. Lyme, a little coastal town, is where Captain Wentworth has been spending time with his pals after missing many days of work at the great house. As a result, numerous plans are made by interested parties in order to pay a visit. Captain Wentworth will have Charles and Mary, Louisa, Henrietta, and Anne accompany him. When they arrive, they are greeted by Captain and Mrs. Harville and Captain Benwick, friends of the captain's from his past. At the time of her death, Captain Harville's sister-in-law Fanny was betrothed to Captain Benwick. Since then, he's been melancholy and has been reading gloomy poems to help him get out of his funk, and recommends reading some light-hearted poetry. As they spend time together and converse, he begins to feel better. As they walk along a wall near the ocean, a young man approaches Anne and flirts with her. As a result, Captain Wentworth is now aware of her whereabouts. She's entering her second bloom as a result of the sea air. Their cousin and heir to Kellynch Hall is William Elliot, whom they find when they return to the inn for breakfast. After breakfast, the gang decides to go for one last walk along the beach. Louisa has grown bolder since she believes that Captain Wentworth is looking for a wife with a more definite temperament. He had previously stated that he believed that people should not be readily swayed, and she interpreted that as what he meant. She decided to speed up the game because he was catching her every time she leapt from the wall. But Louisa fell because he wasn't ready to catch her. Even though it wasn't a huge leap, Louisa nevertheless managed to land on her head. When she lost consciousness, the rest of them were in a state of fear. Anne was the only one with a level head. Her instructions were clear. She told them to take her to the inn and call for help. While traveling, they met the Harvilles, who offered their cottage to the invalid as it was closer and Mrs. Harville had experience as a nursing assistant. With some rest, she will recover from her head injury, according to the doctor, who arrived on the scene. As long as she needs, the Harvilles will accommodate her. Mary and Henrietta will be taken back to Uppercross by Captain Wentworth so that Louisa's parents will be informed. Wentworth believes Anne has the ability to care for Louisa and that she should remain. Mary, on the other hand, is once again enraged and insists that she be the one to stay. Because Louisa is Louisa's sister-in-law, Louisa doesn't want to return home without her husband. As a result, it is decided that Captain Wentworth will be the one to transport Henrietta and Anne back to England. Captain Wentworth is speaking to Anne for the first time, and he wants her advice on how to notify Louisa's family. After that, he returns to Lyme through Uppercross, where he dropped her off. The Musgraves will follow Anne's advice and visit Lyme in a few days. Until Lady Russell takes her up, and is on her own for a day. Captain Wentworth is at Uppercross while Anne is staying with Lady Russell. Lady Russell, on the other hand, feels relieved when Anne tells her that he appears to be paired with Louisa. His suitability for Anne is still an issue for her. Lady Russell has noticed an improvement in Anne's appearance. She's become a little heavier and has a bit of a tan on her face now. Anne is dreading her upcoming trip to Bath. She enjoys spending time with the Musgroves, but she is aware that she will soon have to face her father. A letter from Elizabeth tells Anne that Mr. Elliot has arrived and has been forgiven by their father, just before they are scheduled to leave. As soon as they arrive in Bath, they are escorted to the home of Anne's father. However, it lacks the grandeur of Kellynch Hall. Sir Walter and Elizabeth are ecstatic at the prospect of living in a big city and taking in all the action. Mr. Elliot will arrive soon. Initially, Anne believes he is interested in marrying Elizabeth because everyone else does. When he married his first wife, the daughter of a wealthy trader, he was forgiven. Everybody thinks he wants to marry Elizabeth because he is now a widower and has no children. Having married would ensure that the family name and home would remain intact. Mr. Elliot, on the other hand, appears to be more drawn to Anne. Is she attractive to him? He pays close attention to her. They begin to get along and form a bond. Mrs. Clay has her sights set on Sir Walter, according to them both. Due to the Dowager Viscountess Dalrymple and the Honourable Miss Carteret's presence, Sir Walter and Elizabeth will feel even more important. Because of his relationship with Lady Dalrymple, Sir Walter expects to be welcomed into Bath's most elite social circles. Anne and Mr. Elliot can only hope that Sir Walter's new acquaintance will keep him busy enough to keep him safe from Mrs. Clay's grasp. During a trip to Bath, Anne meets a long-lost friend. As soon as she graduated from high school, Mrs. Smith married a wealthy young man, but she was left destitute and sickly after her husband's death. She's on the mend, but has to make do with the cramped quarters. While Mrs. Smith's health is still failing and she must sell needlework to make a livelihood, she is constantly upbeat. Anne, who is in town with Mrs. Smith for the weekend, is mentioned by Mr. Elliot at a dinner party the following night. Lady Russell is persuaded he intends to wed Anne after hearing him talk so fondly of her. She's overjoyed because she believes Mr. Elliot has the social standing and the resources necessary to marry her. In a letter from Mary, Anne learns that Louisa is engaged to be married to Captain Benwick. While she was recuperating, It appears that the two were romantically involved. They're also located in Bath. This could be a sign that Captain Wentworth is also on his way. When they first meet, it's at a little shop. Mrs. Clay and Mr. Elliot are also there. Mr. Elliot asks Lady Dalrymple to take the women home in her carriage as the rain begins. But she only has space for 2 girls, so we'll have to wait. It is decided that Anne and Mr. Elliot can walk, while Mrs. Clay and Louisa will take a ride in Louisa's car. Captain Wentworth enters the store as he heads out to get an umbrella. Before they can run off beneath the umbrella, Mr. Elliot shows up and he is astonished to see her. He tries to strike up a conversation with her. A concert is their only chance to see one another in a while. With her family, Anne is in the same place. Wentworth's sentiments for her appear to have changed after a conversation between the two. When Mr. Elliot asks her to explain some of the concert, she notices a tinge of jealousy. Her husband lost all of his money because to Elliot, who she met the next day when visiting Mrs. Smith. In addition, he is the executor of Mr. Smith's estate, thus she has no other options. She discovers that Mr. Elliot had showed scorn for her father and Elizabeth when he married the first woman he ever married. He was a terrible husband, and now he plans to marry Anne with the condition that Sir Walter will not marry Mrs. Clay, whom he previously married. That she has no plans to marry Mr. Elliot and is instead in love with someone else. Mary and Charles come the following day. Every member of the Musgrove clan is in Bath right now, looking for wedding attire. Henrietta will marry Charles Hayter, as well as Louisa's brother Benwick, according to rumors. In order to meet Mr. Elliot and the Dalrymples, the Elliots organize a dinner party for the Crofts and Captain Wentworth. When Charles tells Mary that he has tickets for them all to see a play on the same night, including Anne, she's taken aback. Captain Wentworth's interest is piqued when Anne states that she would prefer to see a play than Mr. Elliot. Tomorrow, Anne will be paying a visit to the Musgroves. Harville, Wentworth, and Mrs. Croft are all in attendance. Captain Harville and Anne are debating the tenacity of love. She claims that because women have no other responsibilities, they are more stable than males, who have a more active and social life. She asserts that even if all hope is lost, women would continue to love. Her attention is drawn to a letter being written by Captain Wentworth when he nods toward the message he has written for her as he leaves. His letter shows Anne that he still has feelings for her and wants to marry her when she reads it. Charles agrees to walk with her after she tells her pals she had to leave. Charles begs Captain Wentworth to follow her the rest of the way home, so he may check out a pistol a friend is selling, as they make their way through the woods. Captain Wentworth and Anne are finally able to confess their feelings for each other in private. Because everyone in Lyme thought Louisa was virtually engaged, he departed the town. He believed that by not being present, their expectations would be dashed. As soon as he received the news that she was engaged, he dashed out to find Anne immediately. When they were all together again later that night, they talked about their previous engagement from their younger days. While Lady Russell's advice may have been questionable when she was a young girl, her decision to follow it was correct since as a young woman she was following the advice of her parents and grandparents. Then inquired whether or not she would have embraced him if he had returned after making his riches. He bemoans the fact that he squandered those years, and she confirms that she would have. The final chapter serves as a sort of coda. Captain Wentworth has a fortune, so Anne's father and Elizabeth are pleased with the engagement. Mrs. Russell is first unhappy that Anne has chosen Mr. Elliot as her husband, but she warms to Anne's choice after Elliot runs off with Mrs. Clay to live in sin. Captain Wentworth is able to assist Mrs. Smith in recovering some of her late husband's assets, and her health is steadily improving. Captain Wentworth and Anne have a long and happy marriage. Anne Elliot, the middle daughter of Sir Walter. She has a good heart and is attentive of others' feelings. The book's lone sane female character. In her family, she is considered a spinster at the age of 27, therefore she is often emotionally ignored unless she is asked to do something. Because of Captain Wentworth's social and financial background, she was convinced to break up their engagement as a young woman. Since then, she has never married, even though she has had a good proposal 7 years prior to the start of the tale. When Captain Wentworth arrives, Anne must endure his flirtation with younger females because she is now a shell of her former self. Eventually, though, she goes into her second bloom and becomes even more stunning. Admiring her fine characteristics and forgiving her for breaking their engagement years ago, Captain Wentworth is also coming to admire her and remember his love for her. Captain Frederick Wentworth, a captain of the Navy who is temporarily ashore, between ships. His pride and unwillingness to forgive her for breaking their engagement years ago at first makes Captain Wentworth reluctant to fall back in love with Anne again, but he does so in the course of the novel. He tells his sister that he is hunting for a wife, and then he flirts with other girls in front of Anne. At first, his icy manner towards Anne doesn't change much when he sees how loyal Anne has been to him and how she turned down an offer from a man who was more on par with her in terms of social standing. This is especially true when he becomes aware of the attentions of other young guys directed toward her. Anne has all the qualities a good Navy wife should have, including constancy, thrift, and a level mind, and he is not hesitant to pursue her again when he finds she has them. As a result of his acts, it is clear that he will be an integral part of their future marriage. Sir Walter Elliot, Anne's father. He's conceited and egocentric. He's terribly self-obsessed. Sir Walter decorates his home with mirrors so that he can take pride in his appearance. In his dressing room, he has a mirror on every wall. When he sees how quickly his pals are aging in comparison to him, he decides to let these lower mortals be around him. Even though he doesn't consider himself a harsh person, he frequently hurts Anne's feelings with his remarks. Because she resembles him so closely, Elizabeth is his favorite of the 3 children. Anne and Captain Wentworth are pitted against these two. William Elliot, Sir Walter's nephew and heir. By marrying a wealthy woman, rather than marrying the oldest Elliot daughter, Elizabeth, he defied the wishes of his family. To maintain the family's title and home, she and her father imagine he would marry her. The 2 traits that best describe him are mercenary and aspiring socialite. In light of the death of his wife, he intends to marry and pass on his new money to his future bride, Anne, whom he hopes to marry when he assumes the baron's job. He prefers her to the conceited and shrewish Elizabeth because she is more likable. He also has plans to prevent Sir Walter from remarrying and having a son, who would take his place as the family's heir apparent. Hampshire, England, the 16th of December, 1775. When she died in 1817, she was 41 years old. The most widely read novels in English literature were all written by her during her lifetime. Romantic fiction is one of the genres in which she writes. Regency England is brought to life by her wit and cynicism. Her books were originally published anonymously, despite their popularity today. She published 4 books between 1811 and 1816, during which time she gained some popularity. A minister's son who operated a boys' school and elder brothers helped her get some of her education as the youngest daughter of a large family. However, she received the most of her education by books. She devoured books like candy. Cassandra grew up with her brothers and sisters entertaining their parents and neighbors in the evenings. They staged plays, performed musical numbers, and read stories. There were other writers in her family, but only Jane had the time and inclination to pursue them. Henry, her brother, and her father were the ones who pushed her to publish and even paid for the first editions of her works. Her entire family was supportive of her writing endeavors, including Henry, who became her agent. After she died, her brother, Henry, and sister, Cassandra had her last 2 books published, Persuasion and Northanger Abbey. In place of the generic "by a lady," her name was printed on the book for the first time. Henry was able to get Jane buried in Winchester Cathedral thanks to his connections in the clergy. Her brother, James, wrote a lovely eulogy commending her personal qualities and mentioning the extraordinary endowments of her mind, but managed to leave out her accomplishments as a writer. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button for more content like this. See you in next video.